It only took me 5 minutes to paint this watercolor beach, and today I'm going to show you how I did it. So we're going to start with our watercolor paper. I'm using Baohong cold press 140 pounds, and the brushes I'm using a large wash brush and a size 2 mop brush from Polina. The colors I'm using from my Daler Rowny set are cerulean, indigo, rose, hooker's green, yellow ochre, and Van Dyke brown. We're going to start by painting about half of the paper for the sky with just plain, clean water. And this painting really did only take me 5 minutes, and most of the time was actually spent picking up paint, mixing paint, and you'll kind of see that, because really this is a very simple painting. It will take you even less time if you don't consider the paint mixing process. We're going to start by dabbing some cerulean onto our wet paper. It's going to blend out really nicely for the sky, but I did leave some white space to represent clouds. And then I picked up some indigo to dab around in cloud shapes to represent more of like a cloudy sky. A little bit goes a long way. Make sure to leave some of the white space so that the entire sky does not feel too heavy. We don't want to lose our little clouds. And then I picked up some rose and mixed it with the blue that I already had on my brush and dabbed that around in just little cloud shapes to again add more texture, more contrast, more dimension and interest into our sky, but we want to keep it really nice, light and airy, and you'll reach a point where you know you need to stop. It will look so much better than you think it will once it has dried. So that's our sky. It only took us about a minute and it's finished. And now we are going to start on our sea, and I'm going to mix what I think is the perfect sea color. It starts with a base of hooker's green to get that nice deep green feel of the ocean. Mix in some of the cerulean for the nice light blue, and then add indigo to get that deepness. Now we're going to swipe that in a as straight as we can line across our horizon line for the base of our ocean, and we're going to do what's called a wet on dry technique, where we are side swiping our brush so that we pick up some of the texture of the paper, meaning that the paint is definitely dropping down on the paper, but we are leaving some white space in this nice jagged pattern that represents the ripples of the ocean and the highlights and the sparkles of the ocean. So it's going to give a lot of movement and texture just by doing this side swiping technique. And then as we come lower and lower on our ocean, we are using lighter blue and adding more water, so it is a lighter value of color, and we are leaving even more white space to represent the foam and the waves of the ocean. Now we're moving on to sand. So we want it to be a yellowish brown color, which is why I'm mixing up my yellow ochre with my Van Dyke brown, but we want it to start with a really light value, so we're adding more water to it, and we're really roughly going over that first edge by the ocean so that we can maintain some of that jagged white edge of the paper for the foam as the wave is coming up on the beach. And then we can get more concentrated and darker as we get towards the bottom of our paper, adding more brown to give more dimension and depth and texture to the sand. We're also going to add some of the brown right under the foam so that we have a shadow as the foam and the wave is coming up onto the beach, and it also gives the impression that the sand is a little bit darker there because the water has touched it, so it's like wet sand. So I try to move really quickly so that everything is still wet while I'm doing this step. Then you'll get a nice even blend for that wet sand look with the brown just right under the foam. Then we're going to do some splatter with the dark brown, so we want to make sure to cover up the top part of our paper, mix up some darker brown, and really get a good splatter onto the sand, especially while it's still wet. It'll give it a nice beautiful texture because some of your specks will be blended out and some will be really sharp. Now, at this point, our beach scene is pretty much done, but we're going to do a couple of things to bump up the contrast, because if there's not enough contrast or interest, then we still have a couple more steps left. So I am mixing up that same dark blue green we did in the beginning when we were making the water, and I am swiping that along the back to really increase the darkness level of the ocean as it gets farther away from us, kind of signifying the depth of the water. Now, as I'm adding this, I'm adding it to dry paper, so after I add this main color of paint, I rinse my brush off so that it is damp, and then I kind of blend it out so that it blends in with the lighter values of color as we get farther down towards the beach. And then the last thing we're going to do is add birds, because there are always birds at the beach. We're going to do a quick swipe up or down for the wings and a little line for the body, but birds add such a nice movement to landscape paintings. Thank you for being here while we painted this 5-minute beach. I hope you try this one out, and I will see you all next time. Bye.